Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today on the podcast. So happy to have you here. We are going to be talking about something that I feel is very important. It's something that I have been very passionate about for many years. One, because I used to be a mental health professional, helping people in their marriage and family, and working with kids. Did a lot of work with children and with couples. And so the whole world of labels was something that I was in, and I worked very strongly and very much in not getting involved in labeling my clients, and was very adamant about allowing labels to be what defined my client, because I knew that it was a limitation, right? So I would work with the parents, and parents typically want to know what's wrong with their kids and want to understand why they're behaving a certain way, and why they're acting out, or why their grades are doing poorly, or why they would act one way at home and one way in school. And so there was this whole thing around labels and just tell me what my child has. And it's funny because I would have the kids that I was seeing, and they would tell me, am I depressed? Do I have a learning disability? Am I attention deficit disorder? And do I have ADD? What do I have? And this whole world around labels and labeling people, particularly children, I feel that it has been such a detriment to kids nowadays, because it doesn't even afford them the opportunity to work their way out of these labels, right? And think about it. A lot of times they're being labeled when they're 7 and 8 years old, or when they're babies. I remember doing a lot of work with children that had special needs, and I was seeing the population of 18 months to 36 months, and everybody wanted to put them in a bucket. Are they autistic? Do they have something? What is this, Eileen? Just let me know. Somehow the label was going to help the parents feel more at ease, or more comfortable, or at least knowing what their child had was going to give them some peace, and then putting them through therapy and therapeutic programs was somehow the answer. And bottom line is that I feel that the label, and I saw this. Listen, I worked with thousands of clients and hundreds of families, and I tell you that the label was never beneficial. I never saw where a label was benefiting the client, ever. Because for a child to know that they are being labeled somehow with this deficiency and lack, and that they don't have something, or that they're not good enough, or that they're not going to ever be calm or peaceful, or be able to focus and concentrate, or do better in their academics. When you're telling this to a child, you are literally cutting them off from feeling that they could be a high achiever. You are already limiting them by telling them that they're not going to amount to whatever, right? To whatever that goal is, or that idea that you had for your child growing up, or for your child now. And so I'm going to emphasize that this whole thing about labels and labeling, so that then they can prescribe, right? Because that's the other step. So that they can, we've got pediatricians prescribing medication. We've got, everybody's prescribing something. And now you've got them on a pill, right? Or pills, right? Because they're just being limited in so many different levels. Think about yourself as a child, or think about, again, my generation was different. We had kids that were just very active. We had kids that were not focusing very well in school. And there were other ways of helping them, or other ways for them to achieve and become very, very well achieved adults, and very successful adults. And none of this was happening, right? All these labels and all of these medications and all of these limitations were not really placed in the previous generations. And somehow these next generations thought that it was okay to just start throwing labels around. And So think about a child that is being told that they're too active, or that because they're not focusing in class, or they're not doing what the teacher's telling them, that there's something wrong with them, right? But nobody is really saying, right? Because nobody has an answer. And I'm telling you, I used to work with psychiatrists and psychologists all the time. That was my business. That was my work for 20 years. So I have extensive experience in this field. And when I would sit down with the child, with the client, my work was to help them believe in themselves and pull out of them their own inner idea of how they could be better behaved, how they could be better students, how they could focus better. And we weren't doing it with medication. We weren't even applying the label, because whenever anybody came in with a label, I was like, well, that's not what we're doing here. And you could kind of take it or leave it, was my stance. And the parents loved working with me and the kids, because they saw progress, right? So many of us are not aware that when we don't feel needed, or we don't know our purpose, or we don't have direction, it scatters us, right? We feel scatterbrained. We don't know, what is the point of sitting down in a class and learning this math if I'm never going to apply it? Or maybe the child feels that their home environment is very chaotic and there's a lot going on at home, and that's why they're having trouble focusing in school. And so the first thing that I would recommend, and that's why we're having this conversation today, the first thing that I would recommend is, what is the home environment like? What is happening at home? A lot of times these kids that were doing really well, and then all of a sudden their grades started to go down, or they stopped applying themselves, or they started giving up on themselves. Not only was it the label, but it was also the environment that was happening at home. Sometimes they would have a new sibling, right? And so that in itself, that's a big change at home. Perhaps the parents weren't doing very well within the couple. Maybe there was a lot of arguing, or maybe somebody moved into the household and this child is now feeling displaced, and they're not really staying in their room by themselves, and somebody is sleeping in the room with them. Or the environment at home is key to this child's success. The other thing that I would always recommend against is having this constant connection to cell phones or games, PlayStation or whatever they're playing with nowadays, right? All of these video games, because they create so many distractions. And a child that is distracted cannot focus. And a child that is misbehaving in school, chances are they're not sleeping well. There's so much research and so many studies that indicate that children do not perform at their best when they're not rested, when they're not sleeping enough hours, or when they're not resting, and their mind can't rest if what happened right before they fell asleep was that they were on a video game, or they were on phone calls, or they were on some electronics, right? Because the electronics in itself stimulates the brain, and it makes this activity, this hyperactivity of the brain, not allow the child to calm and relax and kind of close down their day so that they can rest and then open up the next day feeling vibrant and alert and have more clarity and feeling rested, right? So sleep is also something that impacts a child's behavior, and why labeling them or putting them on medication, that being the initial, or it's almost like that's what's happening. I keep hearing this, and I'm appalled that should be the last resort, not the first step or the first idea. Well, they're probably, everybody else is taking medication. Don't you guys question why everybody else is taking medication? Like, somehow I feel that we're being forced to have our children medicated and dormant and numb to reality, to going outside and playing. What's wrong with going outside and playing? What's wrong with going outside and riding your bike? What's wrong with going outside and being part of the community and have other children be actively in their lives and them actively in their lives, right? What's wrong with all of that? Everybody has just decided to stay indoors, and kids have a lot of energy that needs to be burnt, they need to be in activities. That's the other thing that I'm always going to promote is put them in activities. There has to be something that the child enjoys, and to a certain extent you are the parents. I so often I'm listening to these conversations, and parents are afraid of their kids nowadays. It's like, wait, but they need your guidance. You're not here to be their friend. You're not here to be their favorite parent, or right, because a lot of times children come from divorced parents, and then the parents are just trying to tit for tat, right? We're gonna one up you, like, oh, you let them do this, well, I'm gonna let them do that. It's like, wait, the child is being harmed here because they're the ones stuck in the middle of this mess, right, that they did not create, right? And I'm always gonna give it back to the parents and tell you, listen, you need to take responsibility and accountability for whatever is happening, because it's not the child's fault. And so many times, like I was saying earlier, the children are the ones that are receiving what is happening in the home. What's unhealthy is being kind of poured onto them for them to take care of it, or for them to be the reason why the parents continue to have these discussions, or blaming each other while the child is not doing so well. So with this, what I highly recommend is to step back and first assess what is going on at home. What changes have happened within the last 6 months that could be making this child feel like something has changed in their environment and they don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do with this new information, right? So the other step to that is, if the parents are having difficulties communicating and expressing themselves with each other, to each other, then I would recommend that the parents need to find help so that they can make their communication more effective, more calm, less conflictive, and not having this tug of war happening in the home, in the environment where this child is being raised. The other aspect of this that I always recommend is to keep the home tidy, right? Because the chaos in the space, in the environment at home, may not be conducive for your child to do well in school. If where they're studying, or where they're living, right? Their living space is chaotic because it's not tidy, it's very messy, maybe it's not even clean, and it might be difficult for your child to produce or perform better in an environment that feels very chaotic and confusing, right? Because it's not organized. There's a reason why environments are best kept when they're orderly than when they're disorganized, right? So that's something that you may want to look at and get them involved. I'm always gonna ask you, I don't care how old, like 3, 4 years old, like my kids were helping me fold clothes. Like it wasn't like a big task, and however they folded it was perfectly fine, but it was including them as part of, this is what we do at home. Like we all help each other out. We all help, pitch in to fold our clothes and put them away. And so even when they were toddlers, 3, 4 years old, I was pulling them in to have responsibility. And so I'm inviting you to do the same thing. It's okay to teach them. As a matter of fact, children love to help around. They love to help out in the home. They love to set the table. They love, unless, it's punishment, right? You've got to set the table now. It's like, no, I need your help, right? They love to help out. They love to contribute. They love to be part of this family. So pull them in, bring them in, help them feel needed. We all need that. We all love to feel that we are contributing to something. Your children are doing the same thing. Bring them in. Make sure that the electronics are not happening at the dinner table. Try to have dinner together as many times as you can during the week and on the weekends. Don't just give off, here's your iPad, or here's your phone, or, go read a book, or, here, open this up and here's the movie, right? We have an hour for dinner, so you're going to watch a movie for an hour. Like, be more mindful of how they are spending their time, their energy, their attention, so that they're not feeling scatterbrained, right? Because if they're not feeling grounded, if they're not feeling peaceful, and their mind is going, and it's one task after another, because that's what the games do, is, right? They take them through levels, or, being on the phone, texting friends, or on phone calls all the time. It's not giving the child a break to just be with themselves. And we all need to learn that being with ourselves is a good thing. It's not bad. Having silence in the space, or even silence when other people are around, is not a bad thing, right? So long as it's not cut off, right? I don't recommend cut off as a way of dealing with a situation. So when you're having this opportunity to help your child feel like they are adequate, like they are special, like there's greatness in them, come on, we're just going to pull that out. I know that you can do better than this. As a matter of fact, whenever anyone would bring me their kids, and they're telling me, they're being diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, or all the Ds, right? There's so many LD, like there's so many Ds, all of these diagnoses that were being thrown out, all of these unnecessary labels. It's interesting because sometimes the kids would come into my office and I would ask, they're telling me that you're not doing your homework. And they're like, yeah, because I'm lazy. Or yeah, because I have a learning disability. Or yeah, because I have ADHD and I'm taking a medication. So therefore, I don't have to do my homework because I'm not, there's no point. I'm not going to get a good grade. And so as you can see, the label is now excusing this child's behavior from performing better because you just gave them an out. You gave them the escape route. You said that because they have this label and they are flawed, that they cannot achieve greatness, that they cannot perform and get an A, right? Rather than getting C's and D's, or D's and F's, or zeros all the time because they're not even participating. You are becoming part of the problem. And I'm always going to say that with love and compassion in my heart, because I know that parents, you guys have it really tough nowadays because you've got so many things that you are battling with all of the competition and, the stress that comes in with other parents, are very, they're very flexible with their kids, and then you're trying to have some discipline and then you can't, and then your kid's calling you out on it. And so you don't want to make your kid hate you, or, they're all, at some point they're going to tell you they hate you, right? That's the reality. And you just need to get over it. At some point, one of your kids is going to say, I hate you. You're a terrible mom. You're a terrible dad. It's like, okay, I love you. And that's it. That's bottom line. That's how you respond to that one, right? You don't take it personal, and you don't make it about, they need to like me. I want them to like me. Like, this is not a personality contest, right? This is none of that. This is you being the parent to a child that has everything in them to be successful. And so you're not going to buy into giving them these labels that they're now going to use as an excuse for not performing. Because that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens, is that if you're saying that they have this limitation and they're buying into this limitation, you have just reminded them that they're not good enough to outperform themselves. That this is the best that they can do, this is the best that they can be, and then that's it. And that they have to deal with it and live with that. And then that's it, that's life, right? And so I can't explain to you how many times I have seen so many successful children come from all of these different labels, even coming in or coming out of taking these medications and getting involved in sports, getting involved in some activities, getting involved in the community, getting involved in different groups after school, getting involved in other extracurriculars that help them feel like they were important and that they matter and that they can perform in this area and do good and be good. And that in itself raises their confidence. That in itself raises their self-esteem. And guess what? When you have a kid that is self-confident and has this powerful, really good self-esteem and loves themselves because they're so happy with themselves and they can perform at this level, you're not going to have these struggles that you're going through. And you're all going to grow out of this. But if you're accepting that they're flawed somehow, these are all their limitations, then you become part of the problem with your child. And so I'm going to always encourage you that even though the doctor, the pediatrician, the child is not doing what they're supposed to, they're not focusing, they're whatever those labels are, go back and remember that this is your child and that you are responsible for them and their success. And so whatever label is being thrown out, that's okay. Listen, this is what the doctor said, or this is what this test said, but you know what? We know better. We know that you can do it because I know you, you're my child, you're my son, you're my daughter, and I will help you not do their homework, right? And that's another thing is that I hear parents do their homework or sit down with a child to do homework. I never sat with my kids to do their homework, and they're all college graduates. Like, never sat with any of my kids to do homework with them. Because instead I was telling them, I believe in you. If you went to school and you paid attention today, then you must have learned whatever the lesson was, and you are more than capable of sitting down and doing the homework and the assignment that you learned today in class. And if you didn't, it's your responsibility to raise your hand and tell the teacher that you didn't understand what she was teaching so that she could explain it again, and you can then come home and do the homework. And if they were coming for a question or anything, they had to come with a very specific question. Don't just, I don't understand anything. I'm not going to buy that, right? And so if they were coming in with, okay, I don't understand problem number 9, right? They've done everything else and, okay, let's sit down and let's go over this. Of course, I'll help you. But when I'm hearing parents having to sit down with their children to do homework with them, it's crippling. You're disabling your child. You're not helping. You're going to go to college with them? Like, you're going to move and go live close to a dorm? And I know parents who have done this, right? And that's why I'm talking. I would never talk about anything that I have not already experienced or heard of or had clients that have gone through something similar, right? I will never share something that I don't know anything about. And I promise you, I know parents who went away to college with their kids, because they were always there hand-holding and making sure that their kids, we're going to do this, they're going to do that, and that they don't trust their kids. And guess what? As adults, those children don't have a good relationship with those parents, right? It's very estranged because all they ever heard from the parent was that they were not good enough and that they could not perform at their highest potential without their parents' help. Right? And that's called codependency. That is disabling, right? That is an enmeshed relationship between parents and child. And so that's a diagnosis, right? And we're going to call another label, right? Here we go with another label. And so I'm just inviting you all today to be more mindful of how you're throwing these labels around. Be more mindful of what you're saying to your kids. Because when we are judging them and we're putting them down, we are becoming part of their problem. We are here to remind them of how great they are, how smart they are, how powerful they are, how they can succeed, how they are smart, how they are beautiful, right? How they have a beautiful heart, how they help other people, how they're good to other people. Like, we're here to elevate our children. That is our task. That is your task as a parent, is to elevate your child, is to help them feel worthy and deserving. And listen, if they got a C, I'm not saying, they got a C, that's it, they're going to be grounded for life. No. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't ground them for life, and I wouldn't. Sometimes parents, they're grounded until their next report card. Well, that's not going to work because your kids are smart, right? And so if you've already grounded them for 6 more weeks, then what's the point of them even putting any effort, right? I do highly suggest and recommend that the gadgets, right, all of the electronics be limited. No one should be playing any video games for 3-4 hours a day. 30 minutes, maybe an hour, or maybe not even during weekdays. Maybe that's a weekend activity. Same thing with the phones. Like, parents are afraid of taking the kids' phones away. Like, why? Have a limitation. Phones are off at 9. They all go into one room where the parents are supervising. It's okay to supervise your kids. That's actually your role. That's what you're responsible for, is to make sure that they are safe, that you support them, that you give them love, right? Attention, love, that you financially can support them, that they have a place to eat, a place to live, and food to eat, right? That's your responsibility. And their success does lie on you. And so a lot of times I even feel like for a parent, it's like, oh, no, but he's got ADD. So therefore I don't have to worry about this. Like, this is done. Like, that's it. He's doomed. He will never be an A student. And I'm good with that. Fine. And that's not how this works either, right? This is a group effort. This is a unit. This is a family. This is a team that are coming together. And how do we help each other out? If you have older children with smaller children, encourage the older child to read to the younger child. Get them involved. The little one's going to love that their sibling is going to read to them. And the older ones are going to love reading to your younger siblings, to their younger siblings. So just encourage this unity of love in the family and help each other out. And if you're the parent that is being diagnosed or has been diagnosed and labeled and are on meds and everything else, like, just because you're doing that for yourself doesn't mean all your kids need to be on medication now. Like, sit back and do your own internal work. Do your work. There's plenty of videos on my channel. There's meditations for healing. Sit with yourself, heal your shadow, work through your shadow. Why is it that perhaps you're on these medications? I can't tell you how many people I have worked with that would bring me, because I would ask them, bring me a box. I want a box, or I want to see the medications that you're on. And I'd have people with 12, 15, 20 medications in a box coming into my office like, oh my goodness, what is this? Do you know what all of this is? And, one was for, because they couldn't sleep at night. And then the other one was to wake them up in the morning. And then the other one was because they felt sad. And then the other one because they were too hyper. And then the other one because they needed focus and clarity. And it's like, like, wow. And so doing their work and healing, like doing their actual healing work, would get rid of that box. I can't tell you how many times, and clients that have worked with me can account for their healing and how beautifully they did the work and came out on the other side and got rid of all the medication. And so they weren't about encouraging medication for their kids anymore either. So I know that we've unpacked a lot today. I just felt it was so necessary to help you parents out there understand. And this is not by any means anything to do with you. I know it's tough. I know that there's so much pressure and stress out there for you guys to be great parents. And I'm here just to remind you, don't fall into the trap of the labels and the excuses. Just remember that your child is so pure and so clean, and they're just looking out for direction and for support and for love. And all of that encouragement and reminder that there's greatness in each and every one of them. And our jobs as parents, and your job as a parent, is to bring that out in them, help them find what they love to do, and then how they can become really good at that. And I know that sports typically have a lot to do with that. Sometimes I encourage, team sports are great, and also individual, like golfing or martial arts or gymnastics, because the child gets to see their own improvement, and then they become so proud of themselves because they know how they started and where they were at when they started. And then throughout the months and the years, they see their own improvement, and that's just confidence building for them all the time. So anyway, with this, I leave you all today. Lots of love to all of you, lots of luck, and I'm here with all of you to continue to support you on your endeavor and on this journey of being the most beautiful parent and the most amazing parents that you can be. Thanks again, and have yourselves a marvelous day.